So Donald Trump keeps talking about how he wants the price of oil to go even lower. This is actually a normal thing for an American president to say. Generally, when gas is cheap, Americans spend less money on it. They spend that money on other things, right? So you get a consumption effect. However, something has changed, and I'm going to explain to you why it is that cheap oil is bad. Bad. Okay. For better or worse, GDP is the measure of an American president. It shouldn't be, but it is. What we're looking at right now are two components of how we measure GDP, two things that go into GDP. In the pink, what you have is what economists call fixed private non-residential investment. That is a very fancy way of saying companies buying equipment and plants, right? So we want them to spend money on things because it makes the economy more productive, right? That's good. And you also see it in the GDP numbers when they buy new stuff. Now, in the blue, you have a subset of that, which is business investment just in oil and mining, which in the US really just means oil, right? We didn't used to break this out. We've always had the data, but we didn't used to look at it separately. And the reason is these two numbers tend to move together, or at least they used to tend to move together. So this is before the recession. Generally, oil is responding the way all business investment is responding, right? They both hit the trough of the recession. Every chart in the world hits that trough, right? And then they move on. But what's happening here since the recession is that these two numbers are diverging. Investments in the oil patch are different from investments in the rest of American businesses. Here's the thing that has changed. We did not used to frack. And then we started fracking. Okay. The technology of fracking responds very quickly, much quicker than other technology, to the price of oil. When it goes up, businesses are more likely to invest in new fracking equipment. When the price of oil goes down, they very quickly stop investing in new equipment, right? So we had this movement in the price of oil in 2014 where the Saudis basically wanted to destroy the American fracking industry, right? So oil had been above $100 a barrel, and then down here, Saudis started pumping and oil got down below $30 a barrel. All right. At the same time, we had all been sitting looking at this number, business investment, wondering why it was stuck around zero. Companies had plenty of cash, but they weren't spending the cash. What we weren't doing was looking at how the business investment in the oil patch was dragging down the rest of these numbers, right? So you see the price of oil, it falls through the floor, it falls through the subfloor, it digs a hole in the basement. The same thing happens to business investment in the oil patch. In the meantime, America has become the single largest producer of oil. That happened around 2013. And so it's a much bigger part of the economy, so you get a much bigger effect. So right here is where we learned that cheap oil was actually really bad for American growth. Price of oil recovers, business investment recovers because frackers immediately respond. It drags the whole number up again. So it used to be that cheap oil was really good for American consumers, but it turns out that cheap oil is now really bad for American businesses, in particular the fracking industry, and then all the metallurgy, all the metalworking businesses that build tools and machines to serve the fracking industry. America now has the same boring problem as any other oil economy. We want oil to be cheap, but not too cheap. And of course, I haven't said a word yet about the looming ecological planetary catastrophe of global warming. Can't really talk about oil without bringing that up.